everyone. For this month's bonus episode, I've got something special for you. Last month, I hosted a panel discussion on home assistant robots at the Festival of Tomorrow in Swindon. I was joined by Dr. Patrick Holthaus, a reader in interactive assistive technology at the University of Hertfordshire, Dr. Nicole Salomons, a lecturer at Imperial College London, Dr. Gerard Canal, a lecturer in autonomous systems at King's College London, and Dr. Carolina Fuentes Toro, a lecturer in human-computer interaction and human-robot interaction at the University of Cardiff. Here's the recording from the event.
Really pleased to welcome to the Festival tomorrow on our second evening in this Hawking Building series of events. So that we're really pleased, privileged, excited to be partnering with the Science Innovation Park to put these on for you this year. So I'm gonna pass this over now because I get to just sit and watch for this one and hand you over to our chair, Dr. Claire Asher, who is, as well as being a scientist, runs a podcast called Robot Talk. So she's organised this panel. So over to you, Claire.
Thank you, Rod, for the introduction. So this evening, we're going to be exploring the fascinating world of home assistant robots. And I'm joined by 4 expert panelists, and together we will be discussing the varied roles that robots could soon be playing in our homes, from helping us out with everyday tasks to rehabilitating us from injury, even offering us companionship. And we'll consider the technical challenges and ethical quandaries that arise when we invite robots into our homes. So, without further ado, let's get started with what I hope will be a fun and interesting conversation all about the future of robots in the home. My first guest is Dr. Patrick Holthaus, a reader in interactive assistive technology at the University of Hertfordshire and manager of the Robot House, which is a unique facility for human-robot interaction research. Welcome to Robot Talk, Patrick.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about your research?
Yes, thank you for your introduction. I am managing this facility that you can see there, which is called the Robot House. And what we try to do is to envision a world where robotic technology and other technologies can assist us in our homes. For example, when we are getting older, if we need some support in our homes, but also for people that are maybe younger and need support in their everyday tasks. And since this is still a quite futuristic vision, we need to know how we can create these machines so that they are helpful and that they are acceptable at the same time. So we want to know, what would you like to have in your homes to support you, and how can we realize that? And for this, we actually have an actual house that is not on campus, but in the residential area in Hatfield. And there we invite people like you to come over and interact with our technology. And then you can tell us how you like this. Did you trust the machine the way it worked? Did you want any other kind of support? All these kind of research questions we have and answer in the house. I'm specifically interested in social signals. So what can robots send to us to inform us about their inner states? So can we communicate with people in an intuitive way so they understand what the robot is able to do? How can the robot help them? What is the kind of task space that they can do? And can we use other language than words to do that?
Fantastic. So we have got a couple of pictures of the Robot House. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the robot that we can see here?
Yes, sure. We have different technologies, as you've seen in the first picture. We try to explore the space of how robots should look like and what kind of functionalities they have in order to help us in the home. And this is a robot that's not designed for homes, actually. It is a warehouse robot. It has a very strong arm. It can pick things up. And it's not meant to be in that space, but maybe it's necessary to have it. We don't know yet. Because this can go into the cupboards. It can take things out there. Some of the other robots you see, they look nice. They look much more human-like, but they're not up for certain tasks. So that's why we have these different robots to see which one would be the one that we use and which one would be the one that you would use in your homes. You can see this robot can can lift up the body. It has a strong arm that you can see it holds a towel there in this shot. And then it is strong in manipulating and is also strong in going around places and knowing where it is. Localization and mapping is what we call it.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, it's holding a towel, so I assume it's helping with some like dishes or washing up,
exactly.
which sounds great. And then we've got a very different robot here.
Yes. Yeah, this is a stationary robot. We don't use it that much, to be fair, because I don't think any one of you would have this in their homes, because it's quite bulky. It's an industrial robot, really like one that you can find in assembly lines, but it's made to be compliant, is what we call it. So it doesn't hurt you when it goes around. So it can be in a space where humans also operate, which is not the case for most of these industrial robots. And then we can use this for other really abstract things like teaching the robot where to go. So we can use it, press a button, move it to a position. The user can teach it very intuitively, and then you can have it do certain tasks that you want. And then we can also see how you accept this technology. However, not in your kitchen, not in your living room, I guess, right? Maybe it can be used as a glorified towel holder, but it can potentially be useful for people with restricted mobility in certain places.
I think it's really interesting that there are so many companies out there designing bespoke robots just for home environments, for social interactions. And here you are using industrial robots. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Patrick. My second panelist is Nicole Salomons, a lecturer at Imperial College London, who is developing robots that shape human interactions in complex and dynamic environments throughout day-to-day tasks. Hi, Nicole. Lovely to have you on the podcast.
Hello. Yeah, happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your research.
Yeah, so similar to all these lovely other guests, I also work in human-robot interaction. And my big driving motivation is to bring robots outside of the lab environment and into real homes or into schools or into assisted living facilities. So I'm exploring how can we build these autonomous systems that can really interact with real users in their natural environment. So I do this through a range of different applications. I've created robots that tutor children in schools. I'm currently building robots that assist people with dementia in practicing different daily living tasks and providing the robots provide therapy through that. I've done robots that would coach people throughout physical exercises in their own homes. So yeah, my really big passion is really how can we bring these robots into real environments, interact with real users, understanding each person, and then creating personalized models to best help them.
Fascinating. So we've got some photos from your research as well. Do you want to tell us what is going on in this first one?
Yeah, so this is a project that's currently going on by one of my amazing PhD students, and this is the Robots for Dementia project. So this robotic system, we can easily pick it up and place it into the homes of people with dementia. We are hoping to deploy this at some point this year. We've done some smaller scale studies last year. But the goal is to provide around 30 minutes of therapy every day for this person. And in general, this kind of therapy works really well, but we just don't have enough caregivers or trained professionals to actually provide the therapy. So we're exploring to see whether a robot can actually assist the person with dementia through this therapy, which is mostly just fun conversational tasks and different kind of reminiscence activities. And our hope is really to be able to slow down cognitive decline using this kind of systems.
Amazing. And is this part of your work with children?
Yeah, so this is from a couple of years ago. In a similar vein of kind of therapy, this was done for children with autism spectrum disorder. So these robotic systems were placed in the homes of 12 kids who had autism. And the robot would provide daily social skill practicing for a full month. And what we saw is that after that month of kind of social skills therapy, that children actually improved their social skills. So there's something magical that sometimes robots can do where they can really engage children or adults in practicing tasks that would normally be boring. So this is a great example where robots can really be effective. Even though it is a social robot, it doesn't have arms or can't do much physically, just a social element. It can be very effective, can be very helpful in the right circumstances.
Does it need to be a robot in this sense? Would it kind of just a voice assistant not play the same role?
No, that's a great question, and that one that we get very frequently. So, on one hand, it would be a lot cheaper than a robot, but there is something magical about robots. For example, with kids with autism, we saw kids just completely coming out of their shell because they're so excited to go and play and interact with a robot. There's also been studies conducted with adults that show that when a physically embodied robot is present, people just learn more, they're more compliant, they're more engaged, compared to even something like the exact same robot but on a screen. So having that physical presence just does something that a screen or even a voice cannot do.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we are physical beings. We're used to interacting in that way, so I guess that makes sense. Thank you, Nicole. Third, I'd like to introduce Dr. Gerard Canal, a lecturer in autonomous systems at King's College London. His research interests include human-robot interaction, assistive robotics, and social robots. Great to have you on Robot Talk, Gerard.
Thanks, Claire. Happy to be here.
Please tell us about your research.
So my research is about decision-making for robots. So I'm trying to see how to make robots more autonomous, how to make them decide the right things to do at the right time, and especially when they're interacting with people. The task that I usually focus on is assistive tasks, where, for instance, we can have a robot that helps someone eat or helps someone dress. And what we want to do in this case is to adapt to the user that needs the assistance, because that usually these people cannot adapt to the robot or the needs of the robot. So we want a robot that can understand what this person needs, what are their capabilities, what are their preferences, and then change their behavior so that they can help this person in a more meaningful way. Always kind of being in control of the person, right? So the person always is in charge, and they kind of assist the robot in knowing what to do, and then the robot just helps them. So it's some kind of collaborative situation there. And in this setting, we're also looking into how to integrate common sense with this robot reasoning, so how to make the robots understand better the situations and come up with things that a person would do. And finally, something which is also very important is how to make these robots explainable. So we want to make these robots explain what they are doing, more importantly, why they are doing it. Because if we have a robot at home trying to help us to do something and it does something that we don't expect, we would not trust it if we don't understand why it's doing what it's doing. So we're looking into this kind of explainability so that it can explain their decisions, the reasons behind their behavior, if they make an error, why it made an error, so that we can trust these systems more and understand them better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I guess when you're physically interacting with a robot on a task like dressing yourself or feeding yourself, you really need to trust the robot and to understand what it's doing and why. Yeah. We have a couple of photos from your research. This one is a robot that feeds you.
Yes, that was actually during my PhD where we looked into how to define preferences for these kind of tasks and how to change the robot behavior depending on these user preferences. Mm-hmm. This was an example of a robot that was also an industrial robot, kind of, feeding me. And there was lots of trust involved there.
Yeah.
The big red button ready to be pressed if something went wrong.
Yeah. And then this one, it's helping you get dressed.
Yes, this is another example, similar example on dressing, which it's... dressing is a very interesting task because it involves manipulating deformable objects. So you manipulating something which is rigid is very easy for a robot because you know how it looks like and you know the shape. But if you get a piece of cloth that can just deform and change the shape all the time, that's way harder to kind of grasp, it's way harder to manipulate and to move.
Yeah.
And here there was also like the collaboration within the two arms and so on, which for this what we did is to use the cloth as a kind of a communication mechanism. So we would leave one arm not making a kind of force, and then the other arm would pull it out, and then that they would kind of keep helping each other. And that was quite an interesting work.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you, Gerard. And last but not least, I'd like to welcome Dr. Carolina Fuentes Toro to the panel. Carolina is a lecturer in human-computer interaction and human-robot interaction at the University of Cardiff, where she's working on socially responsible design of emerging technology. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Carolina.
Thank you for inviting me, Claire.
So tell us a little bit about your work.
Sure. So my work and my research lies in the integration and combination of technology and users. So I explore how people interact with different type of technologies, from mobile device, Internet of Things device, autonomous agents, to then also robots. And with robots, I explore and focus my research on the socio-technical challenges when we try to integrate these technologies outside the lab, in households and in home environments, supporting different type of users. For example, supporting older adults that require some type of support, for example, from the unpaid care or informal caregiver, and understand how, if we introduce this technology in home environments, how they are going to trust in this technology, how they are going to integrate that technology in the daily dynamics.
Really interesting stuff. Thank you. And again, we have a few pictures from your research. So there's a lot of robots in this picture.
Yes.
Can you talk us through it?
Yes, so the photo of the top, those are some of the robots that we have in the lab. A1, and in the background you can see the humanoid robot Pepper, and the robot, the vacuum cleaner robot that you can see on there. We use it for an interesting experiment outside the lab, and use the robot vacuum cleaner in food manufacturing environment.
Okay.
And the idea was to explore how this type of robot can help and support food worker cleaners in the factory, and if they have this robot, how they can give and provide instructions to clean some areas in the factory. So we integrated with some sensors. By then, this study was in 2023, so we integrated with Alexa, and we ran some interesting experiments into that to understand the language, how they are going to communicate and give instructions to the robot to clean specific areas and spaces.
Okay.
Yeah.
This illustrates really nicely like a bit of the diversity of robot forms that there are out there.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are quite scared of the robot dogs.
Yeah.
Do you find that people don't react differently to the dogs compared to?
Yes, I think I've noticed how people react to that is different, and you can see, right, the purpose and the main design of these two robots. If you compare the robot in the background, it's more friendly and humanoid shape compared to the four-leg robots. It's different, and you can notice that is some kind of automatic response into that when you interact with that.
Yeah. And then there's a couple more pictures from your research.
Yes. So those are two types of research that I'm collaborating and working right now. So the top photo is we are exploring trust and how older adults and unpaid carers integrate social assistive robots in their households to support them as companionship, and understand how older adults will interact with this robot, how they will try to integrate it into their daily dynamics. And the photo in the bottom, it's another research that one of the PhD students that I co-supervised ran, and she explored this robot that is called Now. She explored this robot in Pakistan, to understand how this robot can support medicine adherence and act as companion.
Fascinating. Thank you. So I'd like to open up the discussion to everyone on the panel, and we're going to start taking audience questions in a few moments. To start off the group discussion, we've seen a really great selection of different robots this evening that can help us in the home. There's a few of them on screen still here. Obviously, the home environment is often quite cluttered, it's quite messy, it can be unpredictable, it can change. What challenges does that present for robots? Patrick, maybe you can go first.
Sure, yeah. So as you've seen, the robot house is quite clean. It's not always that clean, I have to say. But we think that this is a facility that gets this halfway from a university lab to an actual home, where it's kind of messy because it's not in a lab, but it's also under our control. So we try to use that as an intermediate step, and then we go into people's homes as well. For me, the real challenge is to provide the service to a person on the right level. So imagine you're an older person living at home, being supported by a robot. How can we provide that service? We as researchers, we need to find out what is the optimal service we can provide. For that, we engage in research projects and do things we call focus groups, where we have carers, patients, people that need support, us as experts in how to program the robots, and then find out what is the actual behaviors and the capabilities that the robots need to have. And then we implement them in a robot and then find out if people actually like it. And sometimes striking the balance between what the people need and what they want is quite difficult. So if you imagine a frail person wants to have their drink being brought to them by a robot every time they want a drink. However, from a clinical perspective, that's not the right way of doing it, because you need to encourage the person to actually do something, get up and not get any more frail. They need to practice their walking. So you need to adapt your service to what the person needs, and also what the person wants is not always correct. So you need to somehow be nudging them, not to say be rude to them, but interrupt them in their routines or make them feel slightly uncomfortable, even though that's obviously ethically questionable. So we really have to be very, very careful here. Where do we go in and what do we deliver as a service? So that's really challenging if you go into actual settings where there's a person affected.
Yeah. I guess, these are challenges that care workers face, but maybe people are more resistant to being told what to do by a robot.
Sometimes it's the opposite, actually. People believe in technology sometimes. They say, a robot is telling me this, so I'm doing that, which is also not the best way, because people overtrust technology. It might not deliver what they want from it. So we need to be careful there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicole, would you like to share a technical challenge for robots in the home?
Yeah, kind of continue off on what Patrick said. I think one of the biggest challenges of bringing robots into the homes are not the robot themselves, but the people they're interacting with. And that's because each person is so unique and different. So a lot of work that I do is really focused on the human aspect. How do we understand and model each particular person that the robot is interacting with? For example, my work in tutoring, we need to understand what each person's skills are. What do they know? What do they not know? What do they need some help with? What are their potential learning styles and preferences? And then how can the robot adapt to them on the go? And a lot of this user modeling usually needs to be done with very little data. So in a lot of other fields, they just throw a huge amount of data at it into this deep model, and out comes a solution. Whereas for us, we usually have very sparse data, and each person has its own kind of little bit of data that they contribute. So I think that's one of my main challenges, but I also find it a lot of fun because you just learn so much about people and about each uniqueness of each person.
Yeah. Amazing. It's unsurprising that people have different wants, but figuring out how you customize the robot for each person is really challenging.
Yeah. And people often don't know, even if you ask a person, what do you want? They don't know how to answer that.
Yeah. So
it's not like we can just ask. We just have to, with subtle cues, try to get that out of them somehow.
I guess people probably are better at knowing what they don't want.
Yeah, that's very true.
Gerard, would you like to add to this conversation?
Yes. So I think one of the big challenge is also safety. So we're talking about putting robots, which are still machines, right? So we can make them nice and cute and something, but it's still a machine that if we want them to do something useful, they need some motors that have to be powerful, at least powerful enough to kind of lift some objects that may be heavy. That means that then if they need to interact with the person, for instance, feeding someone, like these motors are capable of actually harming someone. So it's very important to make sure that these robots cannot really kind of injure anyone by trying to help them. And I think that's a big challenge because there's this kind of trade-off between designing a robot that is able to do all the tasks that you want it to do, but also not able to harm someone when it's actually doing these tasks in case something kind of misbehaves or something goes wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm surprised that more robots, especially more social robots, aren't made out of soft materials that would potentially be less dangerous in the home.
Yeah, and I think there's some robots which are like this. Most of the research, and I know some colleagues working on this, is on compliant control that also Patrick mentioned. So for instance, like the Sawyer or the Baxter, robots that are compliant by design. So you can, when they're moved, you can push them away and they will let you do that. So we'll also work with these kind of controllers in the feeding, for instance, where when the robot was kind of feeding you, you could actually stop it and push it away or will not kind of harm you when you're moving. But if you think about it, it's still a machine that's putting a piece of cutlery inside your mouth.
Yeah.
So it is very important to be able to understand the person so that the robot can interact in a correct way. and then ensure that there's nothing can go wrong in this process.
Yeah, absolutely. Carolina, would you like to add a technical challenge to our conversation?
Yes, I think the technical challenges, I will add the socio-technical challenge. I think we need to start to consider also aspects as cultural differences, especially most part of the research that we've seen today and the work that is related with robots, it's conducted mainly in the global north. So there is a lack of research and understanding of cultural difference and what is going on in other countries. So, for example, one of the research that we conducted identified that when you explore trust and robots, most part of the research is conducted in the United States, in the UK, mainly the global north. And there is no research in South America or Africa, for example, that explore that how people is going to trust in this technology. So it's interesting to understand as well all these multiple challenges, the cultural differences, how other communities and other people living in different countries will consider the robots as a social entity within their household.
I guess as well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the robot manufacturers are also based in the global north. So I wonder if people in the global south might feel more as though these technologies are being sort of forced upon them.
Exactly. So it's, of course, highly expensive. There is highly expensive equipment. And then, of course, moving to the other part is making more expensive. And what is also important is because all the future regulations, all the future metrics and how we are going to evaluate this technology is going to be integrated, I think needs to have this more responsible and overall view.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, I think it's time to take some questions from the audience. That arm was immediate.
Thank you, everyone. That was really interesting. I'm seeing through all of these different robots that you're working with, apart from the ones which kind of look a little bit like toys, the ones that are more for communication, which I think is super interesting and can be integrated in a home a lot quicker than some other stuff. I was just wondering, when I look at different architecture it seems to me like a majority of people live in, there's steps and there's just the floor isn't particularly wheel robot friendly. So, for example, I guess a lot of people are having robots in their houses which are doing cleaning for them, but quite a few people can't have them because it can't get around the entire house. So with robots like this that are designed to help someone through their daily tasks, if it can't go up the stairs, does that mean you need two? Do you need a lift to be able to help them? Or is this a hypothetical for when this information can be put in a different body, if that makes sense?
So it's a really good question, actually. I like it a lot because all the machines that you see here, I don't think they will be in any of your homes. They are really research machines where we can explore the range of things that we might need in the future. As you rightfully said, some of these dog-like robots, the smaller ones, or the tabletop robots you can have in a house, but they're still quite limited. So we actually need to find out, are legs something we need on a robot? Or do we maybe need to adapt our homes for the Hoover robots a little bit, and so that the robot can go around? But none of these robots are anything that we would have in our home at the moment.
Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, also coming back on the safety thing is that I'm sure you've seen many humanoid robots lately. They're everywhere now. And most of the videos are human robots falling because that's what kind of makes it fun for people to see. And if you think about having something like this at home, if you have a robot coming up the stairs and you're behind the robot falls and falls on you, that is dangerous, right? So this is also something that we need to take into account when we're thinking about the robots of the future that will be in homes. Obviously, a wheeled robot is more stable, so it's harder for it to fall. But then obviously stairs are a problem. So I'm not sure what's the actual solution to this. Maybe having one robot in its floor, maybe some device that can move robots up and down stairs. But yeah, definitely that's a very important challenge to overcome to get robots at home.
Mm-hmm. I did see a video the other day of a robot vacuum cleaner that can now climb stairs. So that's kind of quite cool. Right, let's take an audience question from online.
So I've got one from someone called Dan Makes Things, who's asking a question regarding companion robots for those with dementia or autism, and what role do you think soft robots have to play in that space?
I can probably take that. So I think the first thing to say is we're not trying to replace caregivers, or we're not trying to necessarily replace anybody. We're trying to have these robots that can assist in tasks that are difficult for people to do. So, for example, people with dementia, usually the people who would be providing therapy would be the kids of the person with dementia, which is not really the role that you're supposed to have, right, as a child. It's kind of a role reversal that feels unnatural. So this is a place where a robot could step in and provide a kind of therapy. And in this case, regarding companionship, it is an opportunity extra to practice chatting, reminiscing through different activities. So we're not trying to replace human companionship. We're trying to provide additional opportunities for people that otherwise might not have those opportunities. We've also seen some very sad statistics that older adults spend so many hours just watching TV or by themselves. So we see potentially a robot as an opportunity to actually engage in a two-way conversation rather than just receiving information from a TV. But again, in an ideal world, we would increase human interaction. One of my other PhD students is actually looking at how can we have a robot that actually creates additional connections between older adults. So I think that's an area that I'm very interested in exploring, but it's a project that's just starting.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. I like that. Would anybody else like to add to that?
Maybe just a very few words. If you look at it from the autism perspective as well, a robot is something that forces people to talk and interact in a different way. And sometimes that is challenging for children with autism or people with autism. But then it's also challenging for those people who are neurotypical. So that creates a completely new interaction that is not possible without having that robot. So that forces everybody to go to a new level. And then you have a very new dynamic that you wouldn't have otherwise. So using robots for complementary things that people cannot provide is a very good thing. So where robots have strengths in, being reliable, doing the same thing over and over again, which also is a good thing for children with autism, for example, which people couldn't do, right? Or lifting heavy objects, etc. This is where robots can come in. But replacing the human element is not possible because robots can't do that. They're not compassionate. They don't feel any emotions. They can simulate these kind of things, but they are never truly compassionate. So we don't replace the human. We free the human from the tasks that they are otherwise dangerous and mundane, or keep them up for lifting up objects from the floor, etc. But then you can provide the real care as a human being.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have another question? I saw a hand here quite quickly.
Thank you. In the video of the house that we saw, I noticed that the humanoid robot, the one that's pictured there, is it
Pepper?
Yes. So seemed to be almost conscious, kind of looking around, interacting with the environment. I just wondered, is that something that's built in to make it seem more humanoid for the user? Is it waiting for a wake word, or is it interacting with the sensors around the house? I just wondered what that was.
Excellent question.
Yeah, I can take that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So that robot is mainly designed to engage with people. So it has different functionalities and characteristics that prepare them to then create this engaged interaction. So you can, I don't know if it's the case of the robot house that is connected, but you can connect it with multiple sensors to then react to that information and act according to it.
Yeah. Right. In this case, it was just looking for faces in the environment. And whenever somebody is talking, it tries to direct the gaze into the direction where somebody is talking.
Yes. Okay. We've got another online question.
I've got a question asking when we might see robots being widely used in healthcare settings. So do you think it'll ever be economically viable, even when they fulfill the necessary safety requirements?
Another great question. Who would like to weigh in on that?
It's a difficult question.
Yeah.
Healthcare is kind of tricky. So health is more tricky than care because health has more regulation. But on the one hand, we already see some robots going to do deliveries in hospitals, for example, or I don't know, surgery robots are there that people use. But these kind of interactive robots are not really there yet because it's highly, as I said, highly regulated, and there's also much stronger demand on other robots, like, as I said, distributing food or doing surgery or these kind of things. So I don't see this as some priority. There might be the odd robot in the waiting room, right, to do certain tasks like greet people, maybe alleviate some of the fears that children might have when they come to a doctor. These kind of things could be there, but yeah, I don't.
I think in general, robots, I think for foreseeable next few years, will be very task specific. I think this promise that we sometimes see on TV that you'll have this general purpose robot that will help with everything in your home or in a hospital. I don't think that's realistic at the moment. I think in very specific situations in healthcare context, it might be valuable. Like there are robots doing big elements of surgeries, or there are certain robots that potentially look very simple, but can detect kind of how much strength you are using in your hands and do the right amount of counter force so that you're really practicing your hand movements for, I don't know, a stroke rehabilitation. So I think there are very specific tasks that they are doing, but at general purpose, I just don't see it happening that quickly.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Who would like to ask a question?
Hello. Honoured to be in the presence of so many doctors, so couldn't miss this opportunity. There's a line of thought that goes that humanoid robots are more suitable to the home environment because homes are designed to fit around humanoids. I wonder if there's other opportunities such as a robot-type device which picks up whichever accessory it requires to do whichever particular task, whether it be clean the windows or clean the teeth or prune the roses or even say hello to the postman outside. And another aspect that sprung to mind is how can we trust robots, given that we've seen fake videos and fake voice and so on? How can we ever really trust a robot, particularly with our lives?
Yeah, excellent question again. Who would like to try and answer that? Kind of two questions in one, but I'll allow it.
Yeah. In the terms of trust, that's what we're trying to figure out, I guess. So there's lots of research going on, and then research on this. Patrick also looking into this trust element on how to make people trust these robots, because that's ideally, if people do not trust these robots, they will not use them. So then why do we even care about making them do anything if then no one will actually want to use them? And as I said, explainability is one of the cases where if you can actually ask the robot, why are you doing this? And the robot can tell you something that you can understand. You understand why. And the robot can understand that you did not understand why it's doing what it's doing. And then the robot can proactively explain the behavior that will, or we think it will, increase trust. That's the kind of things that we are now looking into and trying to assess and understand what elements of the robots kind of create this trust.
Mm. I guess there's kind of two elements to this, because in order to get to that point, you need to convince people that they want to buy the robot or bring the robot in the first place. So you have to get over that initial fear that makes people maybe not want to have a robot at all.
Yeah. For the form aspect, maybe as well. I don't think it's necessarily a given that we will have humanoid robots in our homes. While the idea, as you said correctly, is it's made for people, so the humanoid robot might be the best solution. We're not sure yet. We have vacuum robots that are not humanoid at all. We have dishwashers that are arguably some form of robot, right? We have other kind of developments that go into the direction that specific devices, as you said, Nicole, you have specific task-solving machines that can then maybe have the additional other function. Then maybe we arrive at a humanoid. We don't know. Right? Maybe we have arms in the kitchen that empty your dishwasher and put things in the shelves. That's why we explore such a wide range of things, because we are not sure yet. There's a trend in humanoids right now, but maybe that doesn't go on. Maybe people are really putting things into the humanoid that makes them being bought. We don't know. We are looking forward in finding out.
Yeah. I do like the kind of Swiss Army knife robot you suggested, though. I think that's a good idea. Okay, we're going to take one more question at the back here.
I have two questions.
Okay.
The first question is, who or what inspired you to do all of these robot things and designing robots?
That's a great question. That's maybe the kind of thing that everyone could answer. Carolina, what inspired you?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
What inspired you to work with robots?
Oh, what inspired me to work with robots? That's an interesting question. Thank you for that. I think robots present multiple challenges and problems. I think I really like to work and think about how to solve problems and how challenging is the technology. And I think that inspires me to work with robots. Yeah.
Gerard?
I guess it was like science fiction, right? You see Star Wars, you see these robots. I was young, I was like, I want to do this. And then once I got actually to work with robots, it was about, we do have robots that can do stuff, but how can we do things that are actually useful for people? Because it's very nice to have a robot dancing and that's it, and that may be engaging and so on. But how can actually make it kind of dance and actually help the person? How can we, for instance, teach them to dance instead of just making it as a for show thing? And I think that's what kind of drove me is how to make robots to actually help people and help people be, for instance, independent for longer periods of time.
Yeah, I think for me it's similar. I think it's books and science fiction. It just sounded so cool. So why not try to make your job something that sounds fun and cool? So I just, when I was going into university, I tried to do a degree that's related to robotics, or the closest I could find at the time, which was computer science, and then looked out for any opportunities that came relating to robots, and I'm here today.
Yeah, I think for me it was more chance than anything. I was studying something slightly different. I was looking into biology and genome research and these kind of things. But then there was a really scary looking robot in the corridors and people were working on it, and it was fascinating. And it was like, we can make this something that is maybe more enjoyable, because it was actually with a rubber mask and something really horrific. But it was nice working on these kind of things, exploring new things where you don't really know where it's going at. It's just free kind of research that goes into you don't know where. And this is exciting.
Yeah. What was your second question?
Do you use any program to make your robots do stuff? So basically, most of the time I use a program called Scratch.
Yeah.
So do you use any program to design your robots?
Yes, sure. So we also use Scratch sometimes when we bring our robots into schools, for example, and we let the children in the schools interact with the robots and try to program them as well. So other programming, more complicated programming languages as well. But Scratch is one of them, yes.
Yeah. So for example, that robot that is dog robot, the Miro-E, use something similar like a Scratch to programming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. I'm really sorry that that's all the time we have. This conversation's been wonderful and fun and fascinating, and I wish we could do it all evening. But we can't, I'm afraid. Before we finish, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to my guests, Carolina, Gerard, Nicole, and Patrick, for a really, really fun and fascinating conversation. Thank you to the amazing audience here and online for your brilliant questions. And last but not least, thank you to the Festival of Tomorrow team for having us, and also the staff here at the Science Innovation Park, and for making sure that everything ran smoothly in the background. Thank you all again for being here, and I hope you have a very pleasant evening. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this panel discussion as much as I enjoyed hosting it. This event was part of the Festival of Tomorrow's Hawking Building series, a series of 4 evening events organised at the Science and Innovation Park in Swindon. I'd like to say thanks again to the Festival of Tomorrow for inviting me to be part of this fantastic initiative. The Festival of Tomorrow is an annual festival bringing together researchers, programmers, artists and performers to share discoveries, research, knowledge and ideas that will shape our shared future. Make sure you check out their website at festivaloftomorrow.com to find out about future events. Until next time, I've been Claire Asher, and this has been Robot Talk.